Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. Today I just wanted to ask a question, and I think it's a relevant question even though it sort of is contingent upon a lot of the things which I'm reading and my own personal view of the big two, Marvel and DC. But I want to ask the question and get your take on this. Do you think that the big two, at the very least, if not comics in general, are now or going to have to become post-continuity comics? Now, by saying that, I'm going to have to define my terms. I don't mean non-continuity comics. Now, non-continuity is what you're seeing, I would say, in a lot of Marvel comics right now, where you have characters not acting in character, be they either the main character or sub-characters or villains or anything else. They are supposed to have a set character and they simply don't act according to it, or they have a part of the story which was in the last issue or even in a couple of pages before, and they're just ignoring it and continuing on with the story. That is what I would call simply non-continuity, and that would be, again, simply bad storytelling in my estimation. It would be something that an editor would edit for content and say, you got to fix this. And that is something that I'm not talking about that at all. What I'm talking about with post-continuity would be things like which are happening in both Marvel and DC right now. That we have two good examples of this. One would be Namor in Marvel. Now, in X-Men Red, he is part of the team and he is just traipsing about the world, whereas in Avengers, at the same time, he's supposed to be at war with the surface world. But yet we have these two stories going on at the same time with the same character doing two different things. And it makes no sense, really. You could say that, well, these don't happen in the same time. X-Men Red happened before what happens in Avengers, so you can put it together. But from someone who's standing in the present and buying comics, it's just the continuity doesn't work. And I would say this is sort of post-continuity. And you can see the same thing happening in DC right now, where in Superman you have the entire Earth supposedly in the negative zone, and yet Superman is the only hero that is reacting to this crisis. I mean, there's supposed to be superheroes all over the planet. Why isn't it happening to all the other superheroes as well? It's just not. This would be, in my estimation, a post-continuity kind of world. And it doesn't faze me so much as a lot of people are going on about it, just because, well, I read comics during the Bronze Age, and that's kind of what it was like. I mean, everybody had their book, and everybody did their own little thing in their own little book, and sometimes you got guest stars, and it didn't really have to be strict continuity where everybody and every story fell into line. So I don't have so much a problem with post-continuity because it looks a lot like pre-continuity, which I was exposed to and I read comics during that time. I got no problem with that. But there's a couple of things, and it may happen in a couple of different ways, I think, for a couple of different reasons, that comics have now become or are starting to become post-continuity. And the thing is that we have a bunch of things going on right now which show that Marvel and DC are both moving into post-continuity, and I would say that their audiences are as well. And the biggest example of that, I would say, would be Batman White Knight. And it's something that's not in regular continuity, but people just love it. And the thing is that I would say DC has always done this better than Marvel. Marvel's starting to try to get into its what-ifs again and to put those out, but even though Marvel was the one who really started that kind of trend a long time ago, it's DC and its Elseworld tales that actually pulled it off, a lot more than Marvel ever pulled it off. And the thing is that DC has had a good track record doing so. So when you have something like Batman White Knight, it doesn't really faze you. It's out of continuity, but it's a good story. And you just say, well, I pick it up, it's a good story. It doesn't matter. Even if it's the end of this continuity, doesn't matter. It's a good story. Now, again, I would say that Marvel is trying to mimic that in a little bit of a way by putting out its what-ifs and things like that. But again, I would see a lot of what has happened in the last, 10, 15 years of comic history, which I'm trying to catch up on. I just read it as if it was a what if. I am going to dollar bins and picking up whole lines of the ultimate lines from Marvel, and I'm just treating them as if they're a what if, and I'll read them in that kind of vein. I got no problem reading them in that kind of vein if they're a good story. And that's the thing, if it's a good story. So I've also talked about the fact that when you buy a North American comic, I would say North American audiences expect, at the very least, a history to be attached to their comic. But that's not to say that it has to be a strict continuity, that everything is in line with strict continuity. I would just say you have to just pay homage to that history. You've got to respect that history. That doesn't mean that you have to necessarily make sure that everything is in strict continuity. And again, going back to Batman White Knight, that's a great example of it happening right there. You have that history, but you don't need to put it in main continuity. And the thing is that I don't want to buy really Marvel and DC for a number of reasons, and one of the reasons is because of continuity. And it's different both for Marvel and for DC, but it's because of continuity that I don't want to buy them. My thoughts on this is that let's look at, for DC, Batman and Superman, okay? Just their normal books that come out. I really don't want to buy those books so much. Certainly not month after month, because, well, DC has rebooted its universe so many times now that the stories don't really matter. I don't care about the stories. Basically, putting those comics in my collection doesn't add to my collection at all, because I know that all of that history is going to be wiped out sooner rather than later with another reboot, and it's not going to make any difference. These stories with strict continuity are supposed to be there, so you add on to a story, and you add on to a story, and you add on to a story, and you build mythology, basically. But if they're just going to be wiped away soon, then that's all gone. I mean, it's not there. It's not there as a draw. And the other thing would be for Marvel. The thing is, for Marvel, I don't want to buy it. It's probably just because of Captain America. And, partly it's because of these new quote-unquote heroes that they're trying to push out and all of this SJW nonsense. But even if they weren't there, if it was just for Captain America, I think that there is no way that Marvel can continue on with this present continuity. It's going to have to be wiped away because SJW Marvel is going to fail one way or the other. And all of what's going on now is just going to have to be wiped away. And like I said, I would like it to be wiped away just because of the SJW heroes. I mean, you can wipe their entire history and start anew and actually make some of these heroes really good heroes. But it's because of Captain America, really, because of what they did to Captain America, because making Captain America a Nazi in that entire time, and then saying that, oh, this cosmic cube produced a new Captain America, he's the good Captain America now, but it doesn't change any of the old continuity. And that just breaks the entire Marvel universe for me, quite seriously. And you throw into that the fact that you have stuff like America Chavez going back and actually punching Hitler before Captain America did. This is messing up the entire Marvel universe, in my estimation, because Captain America is, although he wasn't exactly the flagship of Marvel Comics, he is what tied Marvel Comics together for so long. He is so integral to so many stories in the Marvel universe, and just by being Captain America himself, by inspiring other people to be heroes, by being the core of the Avengers for so long, he was the one who just pushed everything along in many stories, not just his own books and not just books that he was part of. And the thing is that if you take all that and you spit on it by making him a Nazi, then that entire continuity, that entire mythos is gone. I mean, it's completely gone. It's wiped clean. You have just rooted out all of the mythos for that entire line of comics. And until they reboot it and get rid of that nonsense, I don't want to buy Marvel Comics anymore. I really don't. And I know that it might be a sticking point and it's just me, but it ruins the entire line of comics because I can't see them fixing this problem with Captain America unless they reboot the entire universe. And again, if they reboot the entire universe, then why would I bother buying the stuff now? It's not going to make any difference, besides the fact that it's mostly garbage, but it's not going to make any difference. Even if they do produce some good books, I'm not really going to be stuck on them saying I want to buy it month after month, because they're going to have to reboot the universe. And here's the thing. If you take those two ideas and mash them together from Marvel and from DC, it kind of puts the big two in a catch-22. In the fact that I can't see them fixing really either universe, but especially Marvel, without rebooting the universe. But at the same time, if they keep rebooting the universe, I don't want to buy it either, because all of these things that they're putting out, I'm just going to say, well, they're going to reboot it again anyway, so why should I buy it anymore? So, what's the problem? Well, that's the problem, but what's the solution to that? The only solution to that I could see would be making comics in Marvel and DC to be post-continuity. That is to say, to go back to what it was like pre-continuity. You know, you have independent stories. And if that means that everything's a miniseries, oh well. And that those miniseries might not connect to each other strictly, oh well. If it means that you might have a character, the same character in two different books at the same time doing completely different things, oh well. It really doesn't matter as long as it's a good story and as long as you pay some homage to the actual history and don't spit all over it. And that's the thing. That would be producing good comics. It doesn't have to be strict continuity, not in my estimation, to make Marvel a good universe and to make DC a good universe. The core of it is simply to concentrate on the story and to make a mythology that everybody wants to remember. I mean, everybody knows that The Dark Knight is not part of strict continuity for DC, but everybody knows that it is part of the mythos now of Batman. I mean, it can work. It can work. And I see possibly this happening, and in my estimation anyways, the very least. I can't see them finding any other way out of this sinkhole that they've found themselves in with constantly rebooting, but at the same time having such garbage for stories for so long that they can't get out of it unless they reboot. Anyways, I just want to put this video out there because I think it's a really interesting topic, a really interesting thing to think about. And I'd like to hear your comments on this, just to tell me what you think about either just rebooting the entire thing or all these constant reboots or a post-continuity Marvel and DC. So hopefully I've given you something new to think about. If I did, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right hand corner of your screen to subscribe. And like I said, leave me a comment. Give me something new to think about. Tell me what you think about this. All right. I'll see you later. Bye.